Today is Monday, April 10th, and this is the ADM Investor Services Weekly Market Kickoff. Please note that the views and opinions expressed here today are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. Today's guests are Mark Soderberg, ADMIS Senior Ag Analyst, and Alan Bush, ADMIS Senior Financial Economist. Started with the grain markets this morning, Mark. Tomorrow we have a USDA report. What are your expectations?
Well, given the supportive quarterly stocks report at the end of March, I look for lower carryout numbers for both corn and soybeans. In corn, I think we'll see a 50 million bushel increase in feed usage, and that is the only change to the balance sheet, resulting in ending stocks slipping to just under 1.3 billion bushels. I don't think we'll see an adjustment this month to either exports or the amount of corn used in the production of ethanol. In soybeans, I look for a 25 million bushel increase in residual usage, resulting in ending stocks slipping down to 185 million bushels. Ultimately, I suspect last year's crop will be revised downward to account for the lower than expected March 1 stocks, this to occur in September. So for now, the difference will likely be made up in this residual category. I don't see any adjustment to the exports or crush numbers this month in either. In wheat, I look for ending stocks increasing by 15 million bushels as a result of lower feed usage. In South America, I look for the USDA to continue to play catch up with lowering both the Argentine corn and soybean production estimates. I do, however, expect part of this lower production in Argentina to be made up with higher production in Brazil. Net, look for about a 3 to 4 million metric ton drop in soybean production and 2 to 3 million metric ton drop in corn production between the two countries.
Mark, outside of tomorrow's USDA report, what other factors will be driving futures prices this week?
Yeah, well, we're always vulnerable to war or U.S.-Chinese relation headlines. I think U.S. weather is taking over as the most dominant factor that drive agricultural prices right now. This week's big temperature warm-up, along with dry conditions, has been well advertised since early to middle part of last week. This, likely won't be showed as a big increase in planting progress in this week's crop progress update. I look for a big jump by next Monday. Well, this is good news for both corn and soybean producers. It sure doesn't bode well for winter wheat growers in the southern plains as drought conditions there continue to deepen. If we don't see some widespread rain there soon, we're going to see some pretty high levels of abandonment and lower crop ratings there. Also, we're going to see some pretty rapid snow melt across the northern plains here. So that does lead to flooding issues. And if we have planting delays extend into early middle part of May, I think we could be vulnerable to see some drops in planted acres with prevent plant up in that region of the U.S.
Lastly, Mark, what are the large specs doing right now? What's that commitment of traders report look like?
Well, for the first time in 7 weeks, both the money managers and index funds were buyers in the egg space last week. In corn, money managers were buyers of nearly 35,000 contracts. So that took their net short position back to a little bit of a long position. Large funds are still holding a rather healthy long position in both soybeans and soybean meal, while being short in soybean oil and Chicago wheat. Money managers, they're also holding a record short position in lean hogs right now.
Thank you, Mark. Alan, turning toward the financial markets, what's the latest consensus view on the outlook for stock index futures?
Well, right now, it appears that on balance, most analysts are bearish on the stock index futures, citing the obvious fundamentals with the likelihood of weaker corporate earnings reports, the unsettling banking situation, and also the hawkish Fed. So those that are willing to commit seem to be bearish on balance. However, in spite of all of these negative, stock index futures have held up very well. In fact, it was just last week that the S&P advanced to a new 7-week high. So ignoring some bearish news and some bearish fundamentals that seem very prominent, I think has to be an indication that higher prices may be in store for stock index futures, just from a contrarian thinking point of view.
Reports this week, Alan? What type of reports are out there that are going to affect the financial sector?
Okay, by far the most important reports, the potentially market-moving reports, are the inflation reports. Those numbers. Wednesday, we'll have the March CPI guessed at up 0.3%. Thursday, we'll have the March Producer Price Index anticipated to be unchanged. So those are the two most important reports. Also on Friday, we'll have retail sales guessed at down 0.4%. And also Friday, the April Consumer Sentiment Index guessed at 62.7.
And lastly, Alan, here's something we cover repeatedly. Any changes to the outlook for the Federal Reserve policy the remainder of the year?
Actually, there is. It now appears that the Fed will be raising rates by 25 basis points at the May 3rd meeting. That would take it to 5.25. Markets have factored in no change at the June 14th meeting, but surprisingly enough, it appears now that there's a very good chance that the Fed could be actually cutting rates at the July 26th meeting by 25 basis points. So it seems a little hard to believe that they could reverse that quickly, but the financial futures markets are predicting just that, the potential for an actual rate cut at the July meeting.
We'll see. Thank you both. Remember, the views and opinions expressed today on this video are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. If you'd like more information about our brokerage services, like to speak to one of our experts about managing your risks, or would like to open a trading account, please visit www.admis.com.